Hello everyone, Adrienne here. So, yes, I know it's been a really long time, but things got a little busy. Life kind of got in the way. Work. I also had an amazing opportunity to meet Ted Breaux in person for the first time a few weeks ago in Seattle. That was really exciting. And then I had my comeback concert, which the playback for the live show is available on my channel to watch if you guys are interested. But today is super special. Today, I'm going to be showing you a chat that I had with Ted Breaux over Zoom. It was a lot of fun. We chatted about our very exciting collaboration with Seance Perfumes, which is the Absinthe perfume. Super exciting. I absolutely love this perfume. It's amazing and it's really, really special. And when you watch this interview, you are going to understand why it's so special. And before we get on with the interview, here is a special message from the owner of Seance Perfumes.
Hi, my name is Lacey, and I am the owner and creator of Seance Perfumes. You're getting to sit down and talk to two of the most amazing absinthe connoisseurs today. They were the ones that helped me formulate my newest perfume, Absinthe. Why is this perfume so incredibly special? Well, not only was it helped formulate by two of the most amazing people in the absinthe world, but I also got to use an actual bottle of absinthe in each perfume. What does that mean? That means that you are getting a true essence and a true scent from each bottle. I'm really excited to have done this collaboration. I put a lot of really special smells in there. I made it more herbal than what you're traditionally used to because I really wanted to bring out the things in absinthe that make it so special. I really hope you enjoy this scent. I really had a great time making it, and you're learning from the best.
We're here again. I'm going to be chatting here with the legendary Ted Breaux, whom I had the pleasure of meeting a few weeks ago in person, not just virtually. And, he swept me off my feet, literally, because he picked me up off the ground like I weighed no more than a feather. So, Ted, tell everyone how you've been and how things are going with you. I'm sure we're excited to hear about your adventures.
Oh, I've been busy. I've been traveling every week since the middle of April, and it's been challenging at times. It really has been.
Mm-hmm.
A lot happening in my world. So it keeps me it keeps me busy one way or the other. The only way that I really have any break from it all is literally go get lost in the forest. It's about the only way I can get a break from it all. Lots of traffic. So, yeah, been busy. And I desperately need to get to France for distillation, but that had been postponed because the distillery is undergoing a massive renovation, which will not affect. Well, it's good in a way that basically it will take the pressure off the historical part of the distillery.
Okay,
because good. Only the historical products like the absinthe that I distill will come from the historical part of the distillery, which is good because there's a lot of products that they make that really don't need to be made in the historical part of the distillery with that 140-year-old equipment. So yeah, it'll be a good thing, but it's just it's put me off for a while. So I'm scheduled to get back there before too long, and it means I will be very, very busy when I get there. It's a lot of work. So,
yeah, you just keep chugging along. You almost never stop. But man, I can just imagine finally being able to visit the distillery one day. But obviously, things are going to be a little chaotic for me this year. But I'm not going to get into it. So one of the reasons why we're here is because we're going to be discussing the collaboration between myself and Ted and Seance Perfumes. So I know you kind of wanted to tell a funny story about the damaged old stock that was used to make them.
Oh, yeah, it's a funny story, all right. Funny is interesting word, I guess, in a way that I wish I could look back and say that it's funny, but it's really not funny. It's more funny, strange how this all happened. And it's really, it was, looking back now, it's one of these things that at the time it was traumatic, but you just power through, don't think about it. And then at some point, well after the dust has settled, in the end, you go back and process it all in retrospect. Yeah. So, and it's funny how these events that happened, that began 16 years ago, almost to the day today.
No way.
Yeah, almost to the day. In fact, I had to go look back at my correspondence to check that. Yeah, and it's almost to the day, that fateful day, that something really bad happened, actually, in France, that not many people know about. I've been distilling Jade Absinthe at Combier in France since January of 2004. So it's over 19 years as of this recording.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a while. And I remember that 2006, well, the second half, especially of 2006, beginning of 2007, was a very, very busy time, because this is the point in time when we were having the big debate with the USTTB as to why absinthe should be permitted in the US market again after a 95-year hiatus, where it had been effectively banned for almost a century. And then on March 5th, 2007, we got the approval for the Lucid brand, which was the first genuine absinthe in the US market in 95 years. And we're very proud of that.
Of course.
And not long after that, so that was in March of 2007. And not long after that, just as everything was going great, we had a very unexpected event happened. Unfortunately, I was not at the distillery when it happened. And almost to the day in 2007, right around the 1st of July, we had a visit from a bureau of the French government known as Douane Français, which is French customs. And they swooped into the distillery. I was not there at the time, which was a good thing. Mm-hmm. They swooped in and they told the distillery personnel that absinthe was a drug, and they seized all of the Jade aging tanks. And I remembered that it's almost a repressed memory. I had a souvenir from this really crazy event, and that is, and I'll show it. It's the first time I've shown anyone. I had to dig to find it because I'd almost kind of hidden it from myself.
Oh God!
So here are. Let's see if I can't make that work. Here are
those
two,
the seals?
Yes. These are the original, two of the original customs seals that they put on the aging distillate that they seized, and said that absinthe was a drug, and demanded that it said that this could not be moved, that we couldn't touch it. And yeah, so that created a problem. And later I found out that it's a good thing I wasn't there, because technically I could have been arrested.
Oh my God.
And basically I am the last producer to be charged and fined under the original absinthe ban that was passed in 1914. And this was all news to me. And I was looking through correspondence and just going through this, revisiting all this, which I haven't done in 16 years since that time, really. And yeah, it was a real mess. And basically, of all the French products, well, basically it came down to, evidently there was a decree that was passed in the French government by the Ministry of Health in November of 1988. And what it did was, when the European Union standardized all food and beverage laws, all old laws that individual countries had passed before then had all been superseded and were null and void. And someone in the French government realized that this was going to make absinthe legal again. So they quietly passed this decree to give themselves legal leverage. And basically the rule was, if you read the decree, if something had enough grand absinthe, enough grand wormwood in it, enough fennel, and enough hyssop, 3 botanicals that one is going to find in any traditional absinthe, then the product would be declared to be an absinthe, and the original ban would reappear, and all the fun penalties that were included therein would be valid. So I was so I was the poor soul, the last poor soul who got caught up in this so many years later. And the interesting thing is with all, you had numerous French absinthes on the market at that time. My products are the only ones found to be in violation.
Wow, it's almost like you made authentic absinthe or something.
It could be said that, that maybe that, right. And it's interesting because, actually, and we went and we independently tested all the competitors' products just to verify. It's amazing. People were just leaving out botanicals or just minimizing them to almost nothing. I had no idea this was going on. I mean, I never really thought about it. Right. But so Jade was the only product found to be in violation. And so basically I had to pay a fine of several thousand. I think it was around 4,500 euros, I think, is what I paid to stay, to basically to prevent myself from being arrested for the heinous crime that I committed. And we had, anyway, this whole thing went back and forth. I'm looking through all the correspondence, and eventually I just, this was very deflating. And I think a lot of people in my position would have probably just closed shop, walked away. Mm-hmm. That's not me. And it really, after I processed it all, it really made me angry. So I started some correspondence with the Ministry of Health, and I challenged them to provide the scientific basis for this decree. And eventually they said that they acknowledged they couldn't. It doesn't exist. And so, and they said, well, this is interesting because we can't figure it out either. And basically this law shouldn't, this decree shouldn't exist. I was like, thank you. Could you remove it, please? So anyway, this went on between the French medical ministry and then the Ministry of Health and all this. And it took a while. It took over 2 years to get this resolved. When it did get resolved, eventually I did get my aging distillates returned to me, but they were, the way that they were kept was in a, unsatisfactory, conditions, and they were completely damaged. The distillery didn't know this right away, and they bottled some of it, which created a big problem. We had to recall a product that was absolutely,
no.
Yeah. Well, see, this is why I distill everything, and this is why I have to be on top of quality control, because basically, I'm the one that understands this better than anyone, there, especially at that time. I don't know if that would happen again now, but anyway, but it definitely did back then. So, we had some product that got out there that we had to get a handle on, and get it returned. And the aging distillates, there was a heck of a lot of alcohol and taxes tied up in that. And so that made a multi-year project for me to get that sorted out. But Some of the bottles that had this product that had been damaged, the liquid itself was damaged. Somehow I don't remember how I ended up with a couple of cases of it that I just shoved into a corner, and it really did. I didn't think about it until right around the time that the COVID lockdowns happened, and I was, of course, doing some, during the COVID lockdowns, what do you do? I mean, I obviously I was looking at some personal projects and went through boxes of things. I didn't even know what was in these boxes anymore. It's been so long. And I happened across these bottles. So I took a couple of them and I made some very, very nice smelling desanitizer, which worked quite well.
Nice.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is, the remainder of these bottles just sort of sat tight in a dark corner, and it wasn't until this little Seance Perfumes project got mentioned that I was like, might have found a use for this damaged jade product, the illegal jade product,
the seized jade.
Yes, the seized, right, the desecrated jade product that was the target of the French government and deemed to be illegal. Yes, so we found a home for it with the Seance Perfumes project. So amusingly enough, with every bit of that perfume, there is the last remnants of that illegal jade that was seized by French customs in it.
So really what you're telling me here is that these absinthe perfumes by Seance have a little bit of significant absinthe history in reviving it.
Yes, they do, because every drop of that perfume contains some of the last absinthe to be seized under the original ban from.
See, to me, that just makes it more special.
Well, that's why I thought it would be amusing, because it's one of these things that no one would ever know unless I said something, and I hadn't said anything about it until now. But it is I guess for me it's a bit amusing, and I'm glad I found a good home for this. I mean, it smells great. And really, it doesn't taste bad. It's just not up to jade standard because it was damaged. But this is the remnants of the illegal, the forbidden product. Yes. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought it would just kind of be an interesting anecdote to pass along. So use this perfume. Don't get arrested. The stuff in it, is illegal. Right.
Oh no.
Right. Yeah, it took over 2 years to finally get that rectified. I was being copied on all this communication between the French ministries here and the government, and finally they lifted it in November of 2009. And it's interesting because before that, you couldn't just put absinthe on the bottle. It had to say, in France, in the French market, a bottle of absinthe had to say boissons spiritueuses aux plantes d'absinthe. So basically, alcoholic beverage with absinthe plants.
So
but
stupid.
I know, it's absolutely ridiculous. But after we got all this sorted out, then you could put absinthe on the bottle, which was a heck of a lot easier. Yeah, and much less aggravating. Word around the campfire, and it was definitely changed. Word around the campfire, among the French was that they thought it was a bit weird that an American would come in and get all this stuff changed. But what what I had to explain was, but it was either this or close up shop, because I was not going to alter my products to make it fit a completely BS law or decree that had no scientific, no factual basis. So
it's just so arbitrary and stupid.
Well, I have spent more money and time fighting legal battles in the name of absinthe and basically after I was the battering ram for all this, it opened the door and others were simply just able to walk through it. I mean, obviously it's good for consumers. It definitely improved helped improve the category. But yeah, it was ridiculous. And fortunately, I didn't have to play all my cards. I had tested all the products in the French market. Mine really were the only ones in violation. But I did find a certain very popular French liqueur that could also could be argued was in violation as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I didn't have to play that card. That was my ace. Kind of kept that up my sleeve. Yeah, no. But
you're just clever like that.
Well, I don't know. I don't like to show my whole hand, but anyway, troubled times. Fortunately, eventually had a happy ending, but it's definitely sitting on pins and needles for over 2 years. Yeah.
Ugh.
Tough. Yeah. But
that sucks.
Yeah, well, but eventually, like I said, the last lot of that, which was a cruel reminder of what I had been through, at least it ended up in something good. So
yeah. Ended up in a very high quality, handmade in small batches product, much like your product, but obviously taking a different form.
Yeah, entirely different, unplanned. But just thought it was interesting that the Seance Perfumes would have the last of the seized absinthe. Anyway, yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
Fun story. Fun now. Funny. Can look back and laugh at it, but it certainly wasn't funny at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as Kenny says, you can either laugh about it or you can cry about it, and we choose to laugh.
Yeah. Well, me too. At least I can now.
Yeah. Now that things are significantly better.
Yes. No more of that.
So, you've had a couple weeks to play around with the perfume and see how it wears on you. What do you think?
Oh, I think it smells great. I really like it. It's nice. I mean, it makes me want to keep sniffing it. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing. When I initially got it and I had Kenny smell it on me after it had some time to react with my body chemistry, he's just like, well, I like it. It's nice, but I don't like it as much as La Femme Fantôme, which is another perfume by Seance. That one drives him wild, but he likes this one, but obviously not to the degree of the other one, because he doesn't like absinthe.
Yeah, I know it's a problem. Maybe there's some sort of I don't know, medication we can get for that. I don't know. Well, it's an acquired taste. I mean, one of the first things that when I started studying absinthe so many years ago, I remember, I think it was, when I was reading Barnaby Conrad's book, and I discovered that absinthe was an anise flavored spirit, and I was like, oh no.
No.
Oh no, not anise flavored. Oh, I hate that. I just completely recalibrated my brain, so it's all good now.
Yeah. I don't know if this makes you feel any better, but Kenny's favorite of the Jades is the Jade 1901.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's usually the one that I give the beginners if they want to try like the good high end absinthe, just kind of get introduced to the really good stuff.
A lot of people tell me that's their favorite, Jade 1901. Really? A lot of very seasoned absinthe drinkers tell me that's their favorite of the Jades. And I think an equal number of people tell me that Nouvelle Orleans is their favorite. It's when you get into the more into people that are maybe a little off the beaten path with respect to what they like, people that dig a little deeper into the rabbit hole that tell me that their favorites are the CF Burger and the Esprit Edouard, which
this one,
which I both really like. Yes, well, okay, yeah.
This one's my favorite. This is my second bottle.
Yeah, well, it's dangerous to make that one. Yeah. And it's aged a really long time. So I
It's
think
so
the average,
good though.
yeah, average age is on that one still hovering around 6 years. So yeah,
But seriously,
dangerous to make.
it's the best though. In my
I'm glad you
opinion,
like it.
it's the best.
It's a lot of trouble, but anyway.
That's probably why I like it so much. I like things that are made with a lot of attention to detail and a lot of care, and maybe just a little bit dangerous.
Oh, and that one, it's definitely requires quite a bit of sweat equity to produce. Yeah, it's that one's a challenge. Requires a lot of work.
It literally took my breath away the minute that I tried it in my first impression and review of it. Lost my mind, but it was. I just can't get enough of it. It's so good.
Yeah, I have a nice quite rare botanical in that one. Impossible to find in North America. And I have it privately grown for me up in the Alps, and it's
yeah, you discussed that when we were in Seattle. So
yeah,
it was nice to be
special.
like a little bit privy to that, but obviously you're not going to reveal what it is because it's you.
I've had a couple of random people in North America, like come out of the woodwork and try to contact me and ask me about that particular botanical, and like hi, I'm so and so. Can you help me? Can you help me find this? Okay.
Like, no.
Yeah, no. If I wasn't in the position that I'm in, I wouldn't know where to. I mean, it would be. Yeah, I wouldn't know where to go, much less help someone. Yeah, it doesn't exist in North America. So
yeah, there's no way.
Nope. But it's integral to every drop of terminus oxygenae. Got to have it to make it work.
Yeah. So that actually leads me to a question that I had personally. So I know when you were talking to Dr. Sledge earlier this year for National Absinthe Day, you mentioned that you might bring the terminus oxygenae to the American market. So I'm curious as to why it wasn't initially available to distribute to the United States. I'm just curious.
Well, the only reason why is because the way things work in the U.S., it's really a matter of distribution. I mean, I have 5 quite relatively expensive absinthes, which is a niche product among a very specialized group of people. And group of people and bartenders and mixologists that know the spirit well. It is a niche product, and it's something that already I have 4, so to add a 5th is a bit challenging. Okay. It could be, and I may do it, and it's still on the table. Right now we have some business related tasks that we have to complete to really set the stage to do that.
Right.
We are going to, I think, make some interesting introductions into the US market that we have not done to date. So without going too much into what we're going to do, this all could be part of a package situation. So anyway, it's one of the things that when we sit down, drink a glass of absinthe, we talk about the liquid, but the reality is what it took to get that liquid across the ocean, and in my case, all the way to the west coast of the U.S., and then distributed and into a place where it can be bought locally for as many people as I can. It's quite difficult. It's the business side of things, the side of things that's really not fun. It has nothing to do with the liquid, which presents in many ways the largest challenges to all this. Right. So yeah, if I was just a small producer and sold some bottles online, or something like that somewhere in Switzerland or whatever to a very small audience, well, that would be different. But with Jade, the whole purpose of Jade was to bring the best possible quality absinthe to the largest global audience that we can. And it's that last part that's quite challenging. Quite challenging.
Yeah.
An
Definitely.
ongoing challenge. You never finish. Always on
No, of course not.
You're on a treadmill. Work's never finished. So,
but you're determined and you're tenacious and you don't give up. And I love that about you.
yeah, I do get fixated on things that I think don't make sense. And I think that, I'm, when it comes to some of the things that happen in the world distribution, it's enough to make me crazy. But yes, I am determined, and I'm not going to walk away. But I think we have a path forward, but it's a little bit tricky, but I'm on it, making progress. Slowly.
That's part of the reason why you and I get along so well.
Yeah, well, there have been many situations where I think a lot of people would have given up. Basically, the first time the TTB said no, back in 2006, I mean, so many people had given up, understandably. But it's one of those things where, no, not walking away from this.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to lock me out, you're going to have to be more determined than I am. And that's not easy. So
no, definitely not.
Yeah.
One of my friends that's still living in Yakima actually just joined a bar, and she's working as a bartender there. And she contacted me and she said, "Hey, what's a good mid-grade absinthe to have at the bar? I'm trying to convince my manager that real absinthe is available in the United States. You can get it, and it's not going to make you trip balls, and it's not going to do all this stupid stuff." So I recommended Lucid, and I told her the distributors where she could get it from, and she is just thrilled that the bar that she works at is making strides toward building absinthe's reputation back up to what it once was.
Yep. And it's a solid product. I mean, we've tweaked, and we just continued tweaking and upgrading it ever since it was launched. And now it's actually bottled in Hood River, Oregon. It's distilled in France.
Okay.
But it's bottled in Hood River, Oregon. And when you bottle it, you always add some water to it to get it to the bottle strength. And that the funny thing is, just that water in Hood River, Oregon, that's in Lucid, was an upgrade. It's amazing.
Really?
Yeah. People don't realize that. If you have a bottle of vodka, which is 80 proof, which is 40% alcohol and 60% water, things like water matter. Even with something like Lucid, that's 62%, alcohol, 124 proof, 62%. I mean, there's a little bit of water that you've got to put in it to reduce it to bottled strength. And yes, even though it's not much water, the quality of the water really, really matters.
Wow.
And it's something about that. Yeah, just that water from Hood River, Oregon was an upgrade. Amazing.
That's crazy.
That's the world of spirits. And it's another thing in absinthe that people don't think much about. So
wow, how about that?
It's one of those hidden things that no one talks about.
So tell us a little bit about your project with the Gruff Spirits.
Wow. Yes. Not absinthe, but definitely rooted in history.
Mm-hmm.
Dale de Groff is the reason why, if you could funnel it down to one person, why we go to cocktail bars and we're having cocktails like Sazeracs and historical cocktails, Negronis, and not Alabama Slammers and Sex on the Beach. Dale de Groff would be the reason. Dale de Groff, really, before Dale de Groff came along, it wasn't even cocktails, it was drinks. Juice guns, all that fun stuff. And Dale de Groff is the guy that really, he's the one that catalyzed the change simply by writing back in about 2000 a game-changing cocktail book that was all about quality. Craft of the Cocktail. It's a great book. I mean, it's funny because Dale's a personal friend of mine, and I mean, everywhere he goes, people are asking him to sign books. He's done so much over that time to be an advocate for cocktail culture, for bartending, to be not just someone that serves beer and shots, but a legitimate profession, as it was way back in the day. Certainly a big promoter for equity in the bar space. You know, being a bartender, unlike the old days, today it's not just a man's job. So it's great to see that we have a lot of talent of different genders and ethnic backgrounds, and it's great. It helps the entire. The thing is, when you look at absinthe, I mean, the way that we drink absinthe in the continental fashion by absinthe glass with ice water or whatever. Back in the day, the first edition Savoy cocktail book, published in 1930 by Harry Craddock, there were over 100 cocktails in the book that call for absinthe. You look at any cocktail book from around turn of the century, and there are quite a few. Absinthe was used in many cocktails, used a lot like hot sauce. I mean, some cocktails had a good bit of absinthe in it, but a lot of times used like hot sauce. And the thing is, it's part of craft cocktail culture. It's part of pre-prohibition cocktails. It's part of the golden age of the cocktail. Absinthe played a role in it. That's why absinthe was on every good bar back in the day. And the thing is what Dale has done. Dale has been, I guess you could say, he's been an admirer of what I've done with so much respect toward history and historical accuracy. And so he and I have been kindred spirits that way. Dale has never sold out his name to be on a bottle of anything. In fact, the only thing he's ever sold sold out his name. I helped Dale create his cocktail bitters about 12 years ago, which was based on something on this like kind of dry allspice liqueur that was made by Ray and Nephew, that he used to pour in the Rainbow Room in New York on the 65th floor of the 30 Rock building. All the beautiful people showed up at the Rainbow Room, and Dale was the guy. He was the bartender. And Dale used to pour this stuff, and which disappeared. And he just one day I bumped into him at Atlanta Food and Wine back in like 2010. And he was like, I used to pour this stuff made by Ray and Nephew. It's allspice, like, stuff. I used to use it like bitters, and it's gone. And man, I wish I could get my hands on it. And I'm like, well, surely he knows who he's talking to. I was like, Dale, why don't we just make it? And so that whole thing got started, created his cocktail bitters, and Dale's cocktail bitters, basically you've got allspice and clove, and you've got some absinthe botanicals in it. It's kind of interesting. It's got some of my DNA in it. Yeah, it's got somehow it's got some sort of
something to do with absinthe.
Right. But basically, I started thinking that, Dale asked me, everybody knows what Angostura bitters is, which has been around for ages. And basically what people started seeing on the shelves back around 2015 is Angostura took their cocktail bitters and made an Amaro from it. Angostura Amaro. And if you like Angostura bitters, you're going to like Angostura Amaro. I guess they found out that bartenders were taking shots of the Angostura bitters, and they decided to make an Amaro from it. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a bartender thing to do. Take a shot of Angostura, which is pretty strong stuff. It's got a lot, pretty intense.
It does pack a punch.
It does pack a punch. It's really intense. It's not meant to be had as a shot. But what they did is they had a brilliant idea, and they made an Amaro from the cocktail bitters. And Dale asked me, hey, the cocktail bitters that we've created, can we make an Amaro from it? I was like, yeah. So seeing what Angostura had done by creating an Amaro from their bitters, Dale, who's a big fan of Jade, by the way, he asked me if we create an Amaro from the cocktail bitters that I created with him, and said sure. And during the COVID lockdowns, that was something that we did, and it just turned out to be something that's absolutely unique. It just got a score of 95 points from wine enthusiasts, so evidently they thought it was pretty interesting as well.
Of course.
Let's see. And then we thought that it would be just Amaro, which is something Italians use like after dinner. But before dinner, there's a whole different class of spirits called aperitivo, or as the French would say, l'apéritif. And so we created the bookend for that. which instead of me reading a bunch of 19th century French and doing that research, I had to go through 19th century Italian, which was a bit of, it was shifting gears for me and a bit of a challenge, but did that. And then we created something that was something that is very much like an early 20th century Italian aperitivo, which is a bittersweet liqueur that you can use in lots of ways and lots of cocktails. And really, it's kind of fun for me because basically it's, once again, it's piece of history, and it's once it's, that whole turn of the century sort of heyday of absinthe, the other things that were going around that were also being used in cocktails. So it's, for me, it's a natural extension of what I do, being that I'm all about cutting through marketing propaganda and getting back to what's historically correct, what's historically accurate.
And that's what we like here.
Yeah. I'm all about that.
Me too.
So all this social media stuff you see going around with Dale DeGroff and me, that's what it's about. That's what it's about. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of work. And once again, it's just carrying that historical flag, being the standard bearer of return to historical quality. So
love that. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, when I tasted it in Seattle, was it the Amaro or the other one that we got in Seattle?
Yeah, the Amaro is the one that looked like motor oil. The Aperitivo was the first one that was kind of reddish and lighter. Yeah, bittersweet, lighter. Yeah,
I really enjoyed that. That was delicious.
Yeah, well, it's just good stuff made from whole botanicals. It's just the way that I do things.
Yeah, you don't take shortcuts.
No, others do that. No shortcuts.
You're not about that.
No.
So before I get to the Reddit questions, I do want to add a fun, spicy little question here, which is on a scale of 0 to fucking embarrassing, how embarrassing is it to continue to spread misinformation about absinthe without batting an eye?
Oh my gosh. It just from what I see about
from what people? We see, both of us, and a lot of other people. Oh my gosh,
you mean like these poor souls that can't even be bothered to read a Wikipedia article, if nothing else? Yeah, I can't understand it. I don't, it's a lesson. Let's just put it that way. It's a lesson that there are people out there that, and you and I have shared a little joke. A bit of a play on a great classic Pink Floyd track called Comfortably Numb. And some of these souls that we encounter are just confidently dumb and content to be that way. And really there's a good study, a psychological study in this, because it's amazing when you have accurate information right at your fingertips, but you refuse to read it. Or, I don't get that. It's a complete lapse in critical thinking. And it's amazing that someone can think that they have all the answers when they can't even be bothered to do the slightest amount of research, in which they would quickly find that this construct that they created is nothing but will fold like a cheap lawn chair.
Yep.
In the face of
terrible
facts. Anyway, what can you do?
What can you do about it? It's getting increasingly difficult to be diplomatic and polite about it, in my opinion.
These are the people that would run out and buy a pet rock. I mean, I just don't get it. I can't explain these people. Don't ask me to. It's some sort of a condition. I don't understand. But if you can't be bothered to do the least amount of research, how are you going to come here and dictate to me your incredible expertise that's, completely the result of immaculate conception and divine intervention?
Seriously.
Whatever.
Yeah, it was a while ago, but some big one of those travel influencers that go around to different bars and places and restaurants and kind of.
Yeah, I get contacted by these people. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But they will post themselves going to an absinthe bar and they're setting the absinthe on fire, of course, which you're not supposed to do.
Right.
And then some idiot in the comments will be like, oh, well, did you know that they call it the green fairy because you would see green fairies when you would drink this? And then the person who made the initial post was just like, oh, I didn't know that. And I'm just like, what? No, that's not okay. Spit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, if people can make I'm not, I don't want to criticize influencers or whatever, but yeah, when someone comes across and says, hey, I can, for only $7,500, I'll take a photo of myself having a glass of, with a glass of absinthe with flaming sugar cube, right, at some bar. Well, no, not really. It's not what we do. Yeah, I know. But, once again, that's when someone says, oh, and light a sugar cube on fire, that's when fortunately, that one's pretty easy to debunk.
Yeah.
It's some of the other stuff that yeah. Even after all this time, it's amazing. But, 100 years from now, someone will still be spewing some garbage as if it were the gospel truth. What can you do?
Yeah, right. Oh, I saw it in a movie once, so it must be true.
Right. But in the movie Moulin Rouge, they were, all running around with this flaming. Yeah. And they used antiques for that film.
Yeah, I noticed.
And they ruined some really nice absinthe spoons as props with flaming sugar. Yeah.
That breaks my heart.
Yeah. I remember seeing them for sale after the film was done. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, some rare pieces too that were completely ruined. What can you do? No.
So, like I said, Reddit really came through for asking you some questions. So the first one that I have was an anonymous user said, a magician never shares their secrets, but I'm dying to know how Ted gets his colors so vibrant and stable. And how is the louche always so grand?
Yeah, it's a question I get asked often from other distillers. And let me just say that basically the devil is in the details.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of them. And this is the part that where it really becomes art. This is the part where it really becomes difficult to quantify things. And this is the part where people tend to, where aspiring distillers tend to run into trouble. And it's funny. I remember being in, I remember being in walking into a really nice cocktail bar in London and having a distiller, who I knew, but I'd never met, like ran up to me and shook my hand. Hey, blah, blah. And the first thing he said was, so how do you get it to louche so strongly? It was like, okay. Yeah, well, right. Yes. Yeah, it's one of these things that I appreciate making the analogy that a magician never shares his secrets. But it's one of these things that it's picture's worth 1,000. I'd say a picture, it's one of these things that it would take me a while, even if I were to explain certain things, we would be here a while. It's just one of these things that, there's a lot of art in there, and there's a lot of variables, and there's many ways to screw things up. Yeah, really.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
But I'm pretty, I've been doing it a while. So, but more importantly, what I've been doing is doing what the old distillers did. So, and they had a lot longer than I've been. They have had longer than I've been alive to work these things out to perfection. So, yeah, a lot of art, Black
And
magic.
then they also had another question of, does Ted have any experience with glass distilled absinthe? Unfortunately, that's not something I'm knowledgeable about, so maybe you can draw from that a little bit better than I can.
Glass distilled. I presume what someone is talking about is distilling with glass vessels as opposed to copper lambics. And the answer is yes. Of course I do.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, the first when I was doing research distillations for analytical study, that was all done in glass. That was all done in scientific glassware. That was all done with some very expensive Buki Rotavap vacuum distillation setups that are quite ornate and elegant, and make some very interesting distillate. Historically accurate? Well, no, but interesting, yes. And yeah, I have considerable experience with it, in fact. Sure do. It's a lot of fun. Not
And
commercial,
then,
but
yeah,
it's not really a commercial thing so much, but a lot of fun.
And then they also asked, what are some of your favorite contemporary takes on absinthe, and where could there be more innovation?
Well, contemporary takes, basically, for me, it's all about contemporary takes. The present, or the future, I should say, is firmly rooted in the past. And with respect to absinthe, I mean, for me, I love visiting classic cocktails that call for absinthe. I mean, and the future really lies in that. I mean, absinthe will always have this, this chic image, this very fashionable image, the continental service, which is fantastic. It's like the Japanese tea ceremony. It's just a certain thing. It's unique. There's nothing else like it. That's great. And it's interesting for, people that really have an interest in absinthe. But really the future is using it in cocktails where there's some real art in there, and there's some really, really good absinthe cocktails that, and it's always a challenge for us in North America because we are completely underexposed to the flavor of anise. And what exposure we've had is this cheap Chinese star anise oil that's been used in candies and, and, cheap liquors, things like, basically it's not, and that's not absinthe. And for us as North Americans to recalibrate our minds to understand the flavor of anise, and I'm living proof that basically I used to be repulsed by anise, and now I totally love it. Now, I mean, obviously I taste something and I can tell you what it comes from. I mean, is it Chinese star anise oil? Is it distilled green anise? I taste these things now. And I gave a really good class on anise at Atlanta Food and Wine. And I did that in conjunction with Neil Bodenheimer of Cure, which is a fantastic cocktail bar in New Orleans. And I tasted people on distilled star anise, distilled green anise, and licorice root, and they all taste different. So that was a heck of an education. Yeah, I wish I could put on a class like that for 1 million people. It would be so good. But basically, yes, the future of absinthe is rooted in cocktails. It is something that it was a classic spirit that was used in Anglo-American culture primarily as something that was used in cocktails, and that's where the future lies.
Nice. Yeah. My friend Ashley, who did a really great video on my absinthe eyeshadow collection, she finally tried absinthe like within the last year. And she's just like, I hate black licorice, but I love absinthe, and absinthe tastes like black licorice. And I'm like, no, it doesn't.
No, yeah, no, not the same thing. But even in French lore, even in French literary works from the Belle Epoque, I mean, you have prose and short stories where someone tastes absinthe for the first time, they're not sure what to make of it. So even there, it's a bit of an acquired taste. It was at the time. It still is, but I generally find that Europeans and people from the UK as well are much faster to adapt to the flavor of absinthe than us in North America. Yeah. And we need to change that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, yeah, it's a thing. We're just
Yeah,
not
it's
used to some of
definitely a
these
thing.
Mediterranean spices. Yeah, it's one of those things, you know. We're underexposed to it.
Yeah, criminally underexposed to it, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a cultural thing.
so someone else asked, and I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to this, but I'm just gonna go ahead and ask anyway.
Shoot.
Um, does Ted have any plans to reverse engineer additional pre-ban absinthes? He's done an outstanding job with the ones Jade offers now, and there's no doubt that he could do a great job with others.
Well, thanks for that vote of confidence. Much appreciated. When I created Jade, specifically Jade Nouvelle Orleans, I mean, not Nouvelle Orleans, sorry, that's one that's outside of this. When I created Jade, Jade 1901, the CF Burger / VS 1898 in Europe, and the Esprit Edouard, those were exacting to originals, and the terminus oxygenae is quite a bit like Cuisinier, but it has some key differences, and that's intentional. And Nouvelle Orleans, which is, if I were a distiller in the 19th century, this is what I would have done to distinguish myself in the category. But that cross section of Jade, I mean, if you taste, the Jade absinthes are like different red wines. In other words, if a person's never really had red wine, and they taste a Pinot Noir, a Cabernet Franc, a Syrah, a Gamay, I mean, they get a very good cross section. All those taste different. They all taste like red wine, but they all taste different. And a person who gets familiar with each of these has a very good idea of what to expect from the world of red wine. And basically, the whole purpose of Jade was that anyone who gets familiar with the different Jades will have a very, very good idea of what vintage absinthe was, what pre-ban absinthe was. So that has achieved its purpose. I named Terminus Oxygenae. Basically, I named it Terminus because there was an absinthe by that name in pre-ban times, but it's because it's the end. Basically, with Jade, I have done pretty much everything I wanted to do, and bringing another, another absinthe, at that price point, whatever, it's difficult. It's difficult because it's a niche product. So I think that's pretty much it. It doesn't quell my interest. The thing is learning about classic absinthe, pre-ban absinthe all these years, and their application in classic cocktails. Well, classic cocktails also have other ingredients as well, and that's an interest of mine. And if you want to make a classic Sazerac, you really need the original ingredients to do it. I do have original Peychaud's bitters. Yeah, and and those are a little bit, they have a kind of a special flavor. They're a little bit special, but the thing is in order to recreate things like this, you really need the originals to understand, or something that's very, very close to the originals. And so and of course absinthe applies, but other spirits do as well. So my expansion in this realm will be a little bit outside of absinthe, but complementary to it. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. I love that. Celebration Vivid on Reddit also wants to know, does Ted have any recommendations for culinary applications for absinthe in food preparation? I know that I have done this a couple times.
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's this creamy mushroom like side that I like to do whenever Kenny and I are, cooking dinner. Shockingly, he likes this.
Oh, yes.
Again, he doesn't like absinthe, but he loves the creamy absinthe mushrooms that I make every now and then.
Absinthe has loads of culinary application, and it always has, and that didn't go unnoticed. There is a dinner that was thrown, or Gustav Eiffel was the member, guest of honor, I should say. It was thrown for him in a very posh hotel in Paris in 1889 to commemorate the opening of the Eiffel Tower. And this, of course, is a multi-course, meal that probably they had to start a week in advance to make all the straight classic French cuisine right out of Escoffier. And one of the courses, each course is, like a couple of things in it with like a palate cleanser. And one of the courses in this menu, the palate cleanser, is absinthe sorbet, which is fan-bloody-tastic, let me tell you. Absinthe sorbet made with good absinthe is absolutely delicious. And it's a great palate cleanser because done correctly, it's just a bit of a tease. It's not sugary, it's very effective. It's really, really good. Also, the classic oysters Rockefeller, classic New Orleans dish, which is basically, like oysters baked with this, lump of garlic, butter, spinach, mixture on top. That's just a beautiful thing. And at the end, when you pull it out, you put a splash of absinthe on everything.
Wow, you're making my mouth water.
Yeah, no, absinthe in any, like you say, cream mushrooms, loads of savory cream dishes. I went to this great little this great little restaurant in France at Chateau Fontevraud, which is where Henry II is interred. And this is such, medieval, Crusader times. It's so historical. There's a little French restaurant right near there that happens to have a Michelin star. And told the chef that, call him up, said, yeah, we want to bring a few people over there. And we got there, it was like, nope, no menu, just sit down. And every dish that was brought out was made with absinthe. And I couldn't believe the amount of work the chef put into it. I mean, like this, we had this baked monkfish with absinthe cream reduction. It's like this souffle that had like berries and with absinthe. I mean, everything, absinthe works with fennel. It works with all sorts, cuisine de Provence. It works very, very well. It works great with desserts. It works with ginger. It works with coconut. It works with almond. It works with ice cream. Had a balm glace, which is like this multi-layered French ice cream dessert that, yeah. And one of the layers is made with absinthe. Absinthe it's got loads of culinary applications. It sure does. And basically it's just, it's amazing how well it works. And it's just a matter of having some creativity, but there's definitely precedence that goes way back. Absolutely.
That's awesome. I love that.
I hope that answers that question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a wealth of information. And, from our dinner a few weeks ago, how much I love food.
So do I.
Those oysters were really good.
Yes, they sure can be.
Yeah, that was my first time having oysters, and I was slightly worried that you were watching me so closely as I was having
Nope. I didn't keep an eye on you. I knew you'd be fine.
Okay. I was worried, but I was shocked that I didn't hate it.
No, they're good.
Yeah, they are good.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what
others have figured that out too.
Yeah.
Many others.
Yeah, if I take Kenny out for a fancy dinner that, I'm going to treat him to, if I get like a big paycheck one of these days, I'm going to have him try oysters. So he hasn't tried them either.
Uh-oh.
Yes, there are many things wrong with Kenny. Just kidding.
We can help.
Okay. Yeah. So another Reddit user asks, this may have been answered before, but I'm newer to the community, but
no problem.
Does Ted consider his work to be done? I imagine it's been a few years since a Jade was released. Is he working on more releases?
Well, like I said, yes, but not necessarily with absinthe. With other historically products, like I said, that are spirits that are complementary to absinthe, definitely from the same period, also playing important roles, some of which can, yes, appear in the same cocktails as absinthe. But the thing is, it's not like my work is ever really done. Every time I go to France to distill, I feel like it's not like I'm just making widgets. I mean, every time I go there to distill, every distillation event is different somehow. When I say different, I mean poses its own unique challenges. So even though just distilling the jades, again and again, it seems like my work is never really done. It's never done. There's always a challenge. It's never like I just push a button and widgets pop out the other side. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into this constantly.
Yeah, your work will be done when you die. Probably.
Yeah, well, it's not like I can just buy some materials and I have to buy certain things pretty much almost like a year in advance. When it comes to botanicals, I have to be able to sort of function in different languages with some very agriculturally minded people. These are the sorts of things that go on constantly behind the scenes with every distillation of jade. And it really is a fragile situation. And I do my best to make it as reliable as I can. But, if one of these, one of the people that grows certain botanical for me in a very specific part of the world were to suddenly depart the earth, that could create a problem. So these are the things that happen. This may not be a problem for, other producers, for most of them.
Mm-hmm.
But for jade, yes, these are the sorts of challenges. And it's always a work unfinished in a way. You're never done. Always. You're never done.
You're never satisfied. Just I'm not going to stop until it's done up to my standards,
Well, for me, just to keep doing what I'm doing involves a considerable amount of work, and there's always a monkey wrench that pops up somewhere. It's amazing, but always,
yeah. Always something that always tries to fuck things up.
Yes. To put it eloquently, yes.
Yeah, right. Gonna move on to my Instagram questions now.
Okay.
A Clockwork Gnome wants to know,
okay,
what is the hardest part about distilling good absinthe?
Wow. Well,
everything.
I'm thinking back about my own journey so many years ago, and it's difficult to distill absinthe unless one understands it. And when I say understand it, I mean that's a loaded word. There's so many rabbit holes that go off in so many different directions. Mm-hmm. Some of them are very, very deep. Some I've not hit the bottom. That really, it's there are people, just honest truth, there are people that distill absinthe that don't truly understand it. Mm-hmm. That's just a fact. It's just as people can play music without really understanding music theory or how to read music.
Yeah,
it's a very similar analogy. It doesn't mean you can't play it, but it does limit you. You're not really going to you won't understand why certain things work and why they don't. And basically, learning absinthe is like learning to read music and learning music theory. Very, very complicated music.
I know what that's like.
There's so many details. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, when you're listening to music, one who listens to music has no way to realize, if someone sits back and listens to Johann Sebastian Bach, I mean, okay, you're like, okay, this sounds pretty good. Like, whoever wrote this, yeah. But to understand why it all works, that's the hard part. And it's difficult to distill good absinthe, much less create good absinthe, without understanding that. It's easy to throw a bunch of rubbish against the wall and hope something sticks. Ugh. But yeah, there's a lot of that goes on, not just absinthe, but the whole spirits world in general. And it's tough. And for me, I had a lot of disadvantages when I started this. I mean, there was no Wikipedia, there was no Google, there was no nothing. And what there was rubbishy, was very dubious. I had all the cards stacked against me when I started this. So to get to the level of understanding, even in the past, I would say, I mean, I've been distilling absinthe commercially at Combier for more than 19 years. And my understanding has definitely has progressed since then. My understanding when I started was pretty good, but my understanding has definitely progressed since then. And that's because I've encountered things that I never would have encountered until I actually went to France and started distilling using 140-year-old equipment. And some of the things that I encountered were didn't think about until you were faced with them.
Yeah,
so
right.
Yeah, it's there's a lot that goes into every bottle. There's a lot of details in there, and it's and getting it right every time. It's it's hard. It's hard.
It is. Yeah, I mean, that's why I can't stand it when there are producers out there that take shortcuts. Like they'll load it up with a whole bunch of wormwood and they'll use star anise instead of green anise and then throw some really abrasive kind of herbs in there. And they think, oh yeah, this is absinthe. And I'm just like, no, it isn't.
Yeah, it's like I explained to someone recently at a show, at a spirits, show. I had someone who was, pretty knowledgeable about botanicals, was talking to me and whatever. And actually, they were using Artemisia absinthium and something else. And I had to explain to them, well, because they were asking, I said, well, the thing is like, for example, the Artemisia absinthium that you're using, that's not like what I use. Technically, it's the same plant, but you're not using what I'm using is not, you would not recognize. I mean, it doesn't smell like what you use. It doesn't taste like what you use. It's just same thing that table grapes don't taste like a bunch of Pinot Noir grapes that you picked in Burgundy.
No, definitely not.
No, but technically they're the same plant. They're still grapes. So and it's one of these things that people, it's amazing that some people just have trouble wrapping their heads around. And it's things like that, that's every herb that we use is like that. Is specific, and that's one of the things that people just sometimes it's kind of hard for them to wrap their, but it's the same stuff. Well, yes and no.
Yes and no. Where you grow it does matter.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and the right cultivar. I mean, the right ecotype, where it's grown. I mean, there's so many things like that. So yeah, it's that's some of the things that people just don't. But some people come into this with the wrong reason. And some people just, they start a distillery and they can't, it takes several years before they can call something whiskey because it has to age. And so they're trying to come up with other things, vodka, gin, and absinthe, which, right, may be questionable. They don't understand it. They're just trying to come up with something to sell to justify this distillery that they put money into, that happens these days. So there's a bit of that happening.
Yeah, I've definitely tasted some bad examples of those. Well,
it's certainly out there. And the thing is, it's, really fundamentally, I don't want to knock anyone that technically is doing it correctly. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to like the product or think the product is that good. And yes, there are a lot of products out there that, there's really nothing special or particularly even good about them. But, hey, but at least it's not some flavored vodka with green dye with a label on it that says, caution may cause hallucinations. So I'm thankful for that. That's good enough. Whatever else the market will sort out.
Yeah. So my friend Alessandra asks, what makes absinthe unique outside of its traditional bar setting, such as wearing a perfume on the body, smelling candles, etc.?
What makes it unique outside of the bar setting well, I mean, I don't know that I speak for everyone, but when I started working at Combier in France, when I first arrived there in the end of 2003, so almost 20 years ago, the distillery smelled intensely of oranges. I mean, well, because they'd been distilling mostly oranges for their orange. Yeah, I mean, they 1834. That was the big thing that put them on the map, was their orange liqueur, which is distilled from loads of orange peels. It's crazy how much work goes into that. That's another topic, but it's the distillery, old distillery smelled intensely of oranges. And and since I started distilling absinthe there and distilled so much absinthe there, basically you walk in there, it smells like absinthe, which is great. I love the smell of an absinthe distillery, a good absinthe distillery. Love that smell. It's a great aroma. And for me, it seems like it just makes perfect sense to put it in things like, in perfumes and candles and soaps and, anything else. I love that smell. I mean, when I was making hand sanitizer during the COVID lockdowns, I had the best damn smelling hand sanitizer because I mean, well, it wasn't just, it was basically, antibacterial spray. And of course, close to 70% alcohol. Yeah. I mean, it's effective.
Very.
But it smelled great. I mean, anything you sprayed this on, and basically, and I did that. I handed it out to some people with bars, and said, here, use this. I had some of the illegal absinthe that had been seized by French customs, and I put it in some spray bottles. The woman who does my hair gave her some people at bars, hey, spray this, disinfect your bar top with this. Here you are.
Have fun.
Yeah. It smells great. Absinthe has a great aroma. It's got a lot of potential applications outside of the spirits. It just takes some creativity. But yeah, it definitely does. I love that smell. I love the smell of specifically Grand Absinthe with anise and fennel. It's just those things combined. It's a great, when you distill those three in particular, because they're so strong, those are the flavors and those are the aromas that you really, really get the most of, and they smell great. Yeah. They
really do. And one of my favorite anecdotes about absinthe from the pre-ban era was the gentleman in Yakima who
oh yes,
absinthe on his beard to take the whiskey smell away. So
yeah, that was recorded in a newspaper. Newspapers back then, anything unusual that happened, it ended up in a newspaper. And it's right, guy you can imagine him with this big 19th century sort of cowboy mustache, asked the bartender before he leaves the bar, pour some absinthe into his hand, rubs it into his mustache, and the bartender's looking at him like, what are you doing? And the guy looks at him and says, yeah, I'm going to call on some ladies and I want to take the whiskey odor away.
I mean, shit, that would have worked on me 100 years ago.
Well, I guess if you're going to go court some women, better to have absinthe kind of on your breath than some whiskey.
I'd agree with that. Absinthe is a lot fresher, and
absinthe is perfume. Whiskey's not, right?
Yeah. Whiskey's definitely not.
No, you don't say like, oh, this is some great smelling whiskey so much. No. Not so much.
I practically cough every time I smell whiskey. So
yeah, I mean, I like whiskey, but it's not like I'm saying, oh man, this stuff smells great. Okay, that's more of a taste thing. But yeah.
As you know, my sensitive sniffer that contributes to my good palate for reviewing absinthe, unfortunately, is just overwhelmed by the smell of whiskey.
Yeah, maybe Isle of Malt Scotch, something like that. It's got a nice aroma to it if you like that sort of thing. But yeah, no, absinthe is, definitely takes the whiskey odor away.
And then from YouTube, one of my subscribers asks, do you have any new collaborations coming up with different spirits or flavor profiles? Also, where do you see absinthe in your company going toward the future? Thank you for your work and that you have done, and keep up the fantastic work.
Oh, well, thank you for the props, and thank you for your question. Yeah, I do have I do have some other things on the radar. I can't really talk about them right now, but I have to keep my hands dirty. It's the only way. Idle's mind is the devil's workshop. It's the only thing that keeps me out of trouble. I got, it's like I'm like a dog that constantly has to have some sort of a chew toy. Got to have something I'm working on all the time. I've had lots of opportunities come my way over the years. They've not all been what I felt were really opportunities that I would be wise to pursue for one reason or another. There's some that would pretty much require a heck of a lot of my time and some big commitments. So, I don't know about that. My opportunity, my collaboration, I should say, with Dale DeGroff, which 2 products already in the market, which we're still kind of tweaking a little bit, but 2 products in the market and then a line extension. So one I pretty much got finished and is ready to go, which will be another great challenge for our wonderful friends Joe Sullivan and Caitlin Bartlemay over at Clear Creek Distillery. They'll no doubt have fun. I'm using that word loosely when I give them this challenge. The next challenge to give them, but so I'm definitely working on some things, pacing myself though. Like I said, I can't take every opportunity, but there's a few that that are interesting. The Groff has my complete attention at this time. That and Jade is enough to keep me plenty busy. And where I see Absinthe's future, it's not so much that I see people who drink absinthe drinking more absinthe. So it's not really vertical expansion. What I really want to see is, which is what I've always wanted to see, is absinthe expanded horizontally, which means instead of people drinking more absinthe, more people drinking absinthe. So, and the way to do that really is on the back of the global phenomenon that is the craft, the pre-prohibition cocktail revolution, craft cocktail revolution, which is a global phenomenon. Absinthe fits right in. It's a great fit for that. Right on top, it weaves right into it. When I first got into this business commercially almost 20 years ago, it was a tough time. Because the flavor trends back then were light flavors like vodka and flavored vodka, which was hugely disappointing to me. Absinthe is a strong flavored spirit, and I do like strong flavors. I mean, I like flavor, but anyway, but right now, but everything has changed completely. So right now, the pendulum has completely swung the opposite direction, and strong flavors are absolutely on trend right now, which is good. It's good for the things that interest me. It's good for historical spirits. It's good for absinthe. It's good for everybody. So when I see and with my collaboration with Dale DeGroff with the Italian style classic aperitivo, and it's very intense, totally unique Amaro. Seeing people drink more of that and Fernet and things like this, strong flavored spirits, things with lots of bitters, things like strong flavored spirits. It's good for absinthe. It definitely is. So I see that's the way that absinthe expands. Absinthe, I think, will always be a niche product. It's never going to be the phenomenon that it was in France and at the in Switzerland at the end of the turn of the century. It's never going to be quite that, but it doesn't need to be. It just needs to be a high quality spirit that stands on its own or is used in classic cocktails, and that's the way that we always introduce it to the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely share in your sentiment that I want to see more people drinking absinthe, and that's part of the reason why I do what I do on my YouTube channel, where I want to show them, no, it's not gross. No, it's not a stupid stunt that your friends are trying to dare you to do because it's so gross. Oh my God, you got to try this. It's so gross. No, I want people to look at it as if it's something to enjoy, because it is highly enjoyable and it's beautiful and it's sexy and I love it.
When we got the TTB to give Lucid approval on March 5th, 2007, one of the things that they told us, which we did not make public, is that this was all going to be on a probationary basis. And if there was even one lawsuit within that first year, that they would just shut it all down.
Yeah.
And fortunately, that never happened.
Thank God.
Yes. Well, and that's one of the things, thank goodness, there's never been like a TikTok challenge or something like that, or, basically, we really were fortunate in that, but we never presented it that way. And that being a gimmick and something in some goofy movies that were, doing dumb things, that's not the future of absinthe. It never was. So, it's always been our goal. And I think the goal of anyone who truly distills absinthe with some passion I mean, there were people in Switzerland that didn't even want to see it become legal. They were perfectly content to see it remain a clandestine bootleg product, before Switzerland revamped their constitution in 2005 to make it legal and grant amnesty to the people that were bootlegging it. Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, it did benefit them, but
yes, it did. But they were such ultra purists, you could say, ultra conservative, absinteurs. They didn't even want it to become legal. So we wanted to become legal. We just wanted to see it being portrayed responsibly in the way that it always was by those that made the best. So
yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote my song "Goddess in a Glass," is because I wanted this vicious, toxic cycle of negative and druggy songs about absinthe to just stop, because that's not what it's about. It's not about tripping balls or hallucinating or getting addicted to it. It's a beautiful, artistic thing made with a lot of care that has inspired so many people, myself included.
Yeah, you didn't even make any lyrics about like flaming sugar or hallucinations. How confusing.
No, like the only thing I had in my song that came even close to alluding to anything vaguely drug-like was the word euphoria, but
well, that's okay. I mean, hey,
yeah.
look, we created an absinthe and called it Lucid. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's just how I feel when I drink absinthe. I feel euphoric, and it's just a result of a beautifully made spirit.
Don't we all? Yeah.
Yeah. So my last round of questions that I have from social media.
Okay.
I have my friend Rory asking a few questions.
Okay.
So, he wants to know how the base spirit for the Jades compares with the base used for Pernod back in the day.
Okay.
So I'm sure you can probably answer that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So basically, the base spirit for Jade is an unaged eau de vie de vin. It's an unaged brandy that is made for me by a different distillery that specializes in brandy, actually.
Okay.
And it took about 6 iterations to get it just right. It is a spirit that is a like 19th century spirits. Mostly it's a blend. In my case, it's mostly there's a lot of Chenin Blanc in it. And
Okay.
it is an absolutely beautiful thing. In fact, when we have visitors at the distillery, I would allow them to actually taste the base spirit. And people would say, why don't you just bottle this? It's so good. And I did. So we reduced it to 42% alcohol, 84 proof. And it's called Coeur de Jade, Heart of Jade. Coeur de Jade. I mean,
I really want to try it.
Yeah, I know that's one of those things has not been available in the US. I'm not really sure because distribution is such a pain here. I don't really know how much of a market that would be for it. But it's one of these things that if you try it, it is really good. I mean, like, like you won't use vodka for anything, pretty much, once you try this stuff. It's so beautiful. It's a lovely thing. And what it does is when people taste it, say, wow, I can taste the fruit. Yes. Yes.
You don't say.
Yes, you can. But the thing is, what comes through in the finished absinthe and in the finished Jade is not so much the flavor of the base spirit, which there's a little of it there, but it's the mouthfeel that it contributes, which is just which is it's
beautiful.
hard. It's hard to get without that. Yeah, it's
Oh my God.
yeah. So and
Just
it's
thinking
something.
about the
Yes,
mouthfeel is making me drool.
yes. So now in Pernod Fils, not to go back because their grapes came from, well, what they used came from a different part of the country, and some different grapes were used.
Okay.
But they bought a lot of brandy back then. They bought a lot of distilled, a lot of brandy to use for But but back in the days when pot stills were the norm,
Hmm.
that was the cleanest spirit you could make. And then when the Colin still came around and became really popular toward the end of the 19th century, then basically, yeah, you could make good clean spirits out of anything and rectify it to a point where you couldn't tell what the source material was. But at least with the spirit that I use, which is very historically accurate and representative, it's quite different. It's the impurities in it which give it the beauty.
Yeah. Wow. That's
So there
really
you are.
amazing.
Hope that
Love
answers
that.
that question.
Yeah, maybe with my next big paycheck that comes in, I think I'll break down and get a bottle of the Kudos Jade. So,
I need to get a bottle for myself as well, so don't feel bad.
okay. And then he also asks, what is the most unique pre-ban that you've ever tried?
The most unique pre-ban. Oh my goodness, that's a good question. You know, huh, I that really varies a bit. There's some that I tasted that I thought were pretty interesting, but really wasn't so much the product itself. It was what the age had done to it.
Ooh,
Um,
okay.
but when it comes to pre-ban, when you look at the best brands, they're far more similar than different. I mean, there are definitely differences, and that's not by accident. I mean, Pernod Feast was the cornerstone and was the its success was the product that everyone wanted to emulate. Um, and so even though that other products that were big at the time they were not Pernod Feast, but they certainly were that within very much within that same style, that same realm, that same genre. Um, there's some that because I like bold flavor. I tend to like the ones that I've tasted that are at the higher end of the alcohol spectrum as well.
Mhm.
Like the 72%, which was a thing kind of early on, not so much later, except for
Okay.
maybe export. And there's some that I tasted that I thought the flavor was nice, but they were just a little too light in body.
Oh, okay.
For example, one that was light in body was Premier Fils. That, okay, it's really, really light. This is almost kind of like absinthe flavored vodka in a way, kind of like light luge, kind of light body, and some people like that.
Hmm.
Um, but the ones that were heavier, yeah, the Edward Pernod,
Ooh.
that was always a good one. But the higher proof, um, 65, 68, 72, not the lower stuff. When you see stuff that's like set 60% or thereabouts, it's a lesser grade, not as concentrated, not as good.
Hmm.
Um, what it costs less back in the day, so it was a lower price point. Um, but as far as unique, like I say, I mean, the pre-ban products had far more in common with each other than like, in my opinion, than like absence today. So there's some stuff
Okay.
that, yeah, absence today are so bizarre. But a lot of people today, even they couldn't recreate. It would be difficult for them to recreate something that was kind of reminiscent of pre-ban, even if they wanted to, because of botanicals and equipment and know-how and whatever else. But you know, base spirit and what a number of things, number of details. But yeah, but back in the day, I mean, and don't get me wrong, they're different, but once again, like different red wines. I mean, there's far more similarities than differences. And I guess everybody maybe had, well, I don't know about everybody, but I'm sure people have favorites, and the ones that were my favorites were the ones that I went after. The CF burger, the high grade, the higher grade, the 65% CF burger, the 72% export strength Edward Pernod,
Yeah,
um, you know, and the higher grade Pernod Fils. Yeah, yeah.
that's great. Seriously. And that ultimately led to very excellent product that you produced. And
Well, thank you.
seriously, when I say excellent, I mean it. Okay. I have, as you know, I have high standards, but your products are honestly the best
Well,
among
thank
the
you.
over 50 that I have tried,
I
that I've
thank you.
tasted.
I do what I can. The whole purpose of Jade was when I entered this, there was just nothing out there but Drek, but flavored vodka with green dye with all sorts of BS, and it was pretty horrible. It was a minefield. And the whole point of Jade was, when all these profiteers had zigged, Jade was zag. That was the polar opposite. It's like, okay, you want to know what pre-ban absinthe was like? This is it. And as close
This
as
is
you're
it
going to get.
right here.
That's it. Here it is. This is it. And, hopefully the whole point was creating something against which other things would be compared. And really, people say, oh, well, you created. Well, I didn't create it. I recreated. If I created anything, it would be Jade like Nouvelle Orleans. And to some extent, Terminus Oxygenae. Yeah, of course.
New
But
twist.
those are the things that I those are mostly me, with the core of it vintage absinthe and the rest of it me. But basically, Jade was created in very dark times with a purpose.
But it brought forth a revolution of setting a trend for better absinthe, and I'm eternally grateful for that, because I probably wouldn't have done as many absinthe reviews as I have at this point if it weren't for the Jades.
Well, thank you. And if it inspired people to do better and to be more ethical and responsible and truthful, then it served purpose.
Good. Love that.
For everyone. Hopefully.
So that was it for all the questions that were submitted, and I would like to just pose to you, is there anything else special about absinthe that you would like to say?
Anything special about absinthe that I would like to say? Well, let's see. It certainly changed my career path. Could definitely say that about it. This was not the plan, but it worked out. And for me, sometimes I reflect on this. I was just an outlier. I just happened to be the right person in the right place at the right time to get hooked on this way back almost 30 years ago.
Crazy.
I just happened to be the right unusual character on the streets of New Orleans who had just enough real scientific knowledge to eventually make things really interesting, and enough cultural and interest to solve a mystery that had lingered for way too long. So that was it. It was just a weird set of circumstances that brought forth all this and where we sit now.
Yeah, funny how that works. I definitely, when I started my YouTube channel, I didn't intend for absinthe to become a side hustle, but here we are.
Hey, it works. Well, for me, it was a butterfly effect. It's just me walking down the street and the old Absinthe house and getting a alternative books catalog in the mail, Absinthe history in a bottle, and these things that just happen in quick succession. It was like, time out, stop.
Hold up.
Okay, what exactly does this word mean? What is this stuff? And that was it. And that's all it took.
Yeah, absinthe, like, we didn't find absinthe. Absinthe found us, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. And then the person who brought my last name to North America, as it turned, and I didn't find out until just a few years ago, he came from a town that's like 15 minutes from the Colombier distillery. So
no way.
Oh yeah. So I found this out
I think
a few years ago.
Mentioned it during our dinner.
Yeah. And then and another part of that family has a German name that is not a German name. And basically the name is the name, they came from German speaking Switzerland, but evidently they were French. The name was Doubs, which is the river that flows through Pontarlier, France.
Wow.
So it's another thing
destined.
That I didn't figure out. It's like, wait a minute. Yeah, these people must have come from the Doubs. They came from the Doubs. They came from absinthe country. It's really weird. Yeah, I don't know. Crazy. Coincidental.
Yeah. So, Ted, thank you so much for joining me on my channel to sit down with me again. I really appreciate it. Um, it was an absolute thrill meeting you a few weeks ago in person, finally, after all this time, and, finding out that you're
Pleasure.
real.
Very much so. Yeah, a
Very real.
pleasure. A pleasure.
Yeah, that's going to be like one of the highlights of my life. I mean it. It
It was fun. We'll do
was
it again.
very fun.
Yeah,
Yes, we have to do it again.
and we will.
So I hope you have an amazing birthday. Don't mean to embarrass you, but
I've,
it's a special day
I don't know that
today.
if you've heard all the notifications that have been coming through when we're doing this video. Yeah. It's a busy birthday. Yes. Yeah.
Well, I hope that you spend it doing something that you love because you're amazing and you earned it and you deserve it.
Thank you. Well, in this case, it might be something close to nothing, but much deserved at this point. So,
Yeah,
right.
you deserve a day off. You deserve a break. So,
Yeah, I need one.
yeah. Thank you everyone
Everybody
for
needs one.
watching, and you're all amazing, and I will catch you guys next time.
Right.
Okay, just wanted to check on you. You doing okay? You can still keep going here?
Not running a fever. Pulse seems to be pretty good. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, great. I just wanted to check up on you and make sure that you're not overheating like I am. Ugh, why does this keep happening to me? I hate it. I'm okay though, I promise. I can edit this part out.
Yeah, poor baby.
I told you, me and heat do not mix.
No, so Whidbey Island's a good place for you to be. You certainly wouldn't like it where I am.